Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We had some crazy storms blow through here yesterday afternoon. Pretty much rained all day, and lightning actually hit the cabin. Now, this is the third time that I've had a close call with lightning. Many of you remember who followed the channel for years. Remember one of those strikes we actually caught on the GoPro as I was driving through Texas. And I put it in like slow motion. You could see the strike hit the car, and literally it was like buzzing sensation. And then again, I got hit in France. I don't know what is going on, but I'm finding myself at the top of hills in France. The place there was kind of at the top of a hill or a mountain. Here, I think in Arkansas, we're kind of on the top of a hill, and it's crazy. I keep getting like hit by lightning. This is the third time. Now, when we were in France and this happened, it actually blew up my computer. Now, I didn't have a ground. There's no grounds there in the electrical systems, or at least I didn't have one, because, you know, you're going from American outlets to French outlets, and they're a little bit different. So you have to use adapters and stuff. And I think that's what happened. I was up in this upper room, and there's a, whatever you call it, a lightning rod. I don't know what they had on the top of that farmhouse we were at, and it hit the thing, and it traveled down through the Ethernet cable, or actually hit my computer first, went through the outlet, and went all the way down the Ethernet cable and blew up the modem too. So I was down and out for like a week, and ended up having to go to like this mall in France, and the only laptops they had were all in French. Many of you guys remember this story. And I literally had to set up this laptop that was in French. It took me all day to get this thing set up and get it switched over to English. I had to change the keys out on the keyboard because their keyboard's different. These are different keyboard. It was crazy. So anyway, that was my experience in France. Devil was trying to shut down our communication, wasn't he? And happened again yesterday. Like I said, it rained all day, and all of a sudden, boom, this bolt of lightning came down, super loud, bright, and I could feel it all over my body. So I don't know what that's about, but pretty crazy times, right? Now, before we get into today's show, I want to make some clarifications about some topics we discussed yesterday. Appreciate everybody showing up. We were talking a little bit about baptism, weren't we? Some people are saying it's not necessary to be baptized. Well, the thief on the cross was pretty much the only example of someone who hadn't been baptized. But imagine, you know how like presidential pardons work, right? You don't go through the typical process because the president's there and he pardons you. Maybe that's what was going on. But here was some of Jesus' last orders. And thanks for reminding me of this scripture, that we should go and make disciples of the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So these were direct orders from Jesus. Okay. Now I know there was probably a handful of people, not many, but some believe that you do not have to be baptized to be saved. And so I just wanted to share that scripture with you. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm also going to show you, you know, biblical backing as to how I'm going to live my life. You know, some of you are like, well, how do I get baptized, Casey? Well, the only rule really there is in the Bible is, or the example, it's called an example, it's not a rule, is having someone that is a fellow believer. And this was the common rule. Again, I said it, rule. The common example that we were given. Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist, of course, and many others were baptized by other believers. I don't even believe that the person has to be in any type of authority over the person, obviously, because Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist, right? And Jesus was the Son of God, God incarnate. So find any believer, anyone that you know who is a true believer, without an agenda. It's not going to force you to come to their church or make you become a member of their church, because that's not one of the prerequisites. Sometimes it's good to go in faith. That could add to the experience. You know, go down to a body of water and just hang out there for a while. Maybe God will send you somebody a believer. Every time I'm out, I start talking to people. At least that's the way it is here. I know in different parts of the world it's different, but here everybody talks about God. Everybody's a believer. And if I wasn't baptized, I simply show up somewhere and the first thing out of most people's mouth is God bless you. So imagine the amazing experience of you asking a perfect stranger to baptize you in the waters. They would be honored to do that because at that point they would be fulfilling this directive that Jesus gave, wouldn't they? They would actually be part of winning souls to Christ. And if they refused, then that would mean they're probably not a true Christian because they're not following the directive that Jesus set out. So if you're considering this, and this is something you want to do, go out on faith, say a prayer, get in your car, drive down to the nearest lake where people are at, and maybe just wait around and just start talking to people and say, you know what, I came down here today because I wanted to be baptized. And since we're talking about God, would you do me the honor of baptizing me right now? And that would be amazing, wouldn't it? So I wanted to say that. And also, I wanted to clarify something else about yesterday's show. I was talking about how we are recycled from the cursed dust. And that's why we die. Now, this is biblical. The Bible says the dust is cursed, says that sin entered the world, and that's why we die. The dust is actually cursed with sin. And so some people thought I was talking about reincarnation, and that is not what I was talking about. I understand how you could misconstrue that and maybe think I was talking about reincarnation, but that's not what I was trying to share with you. The Bible is clear. It says every person lives one life, and I can't remember the scripture that it says that, but it says to each man is appointed one death or one life or something like that. What I was trying to explain yesterday is how each generation of creation, and this goes for plants, animals, humans, is born out of the cursed dust. So it's like a giant recycling bin. You die, you decompose into the same dirt that you were born out of. A tree grows, fruit grows on the tree, birds eat the fruit, people eat the fruit. In effect, in a really indirect kind of way, we're all kind of like cannibals. We're all consuming the same cursed dust. Now, the enemy takes it a step further and actually cannibalizes. But we are all just recycled dirt, recycled cursed dirt. That's what we are. And new things are grown out of that. That's what I was trying to explain. No, I do not believe in reincarnation. I just want to be clear. And that's why we die, because we're made out of, it's like making a cake out of bad milk. We gave that example yesterday. And apologies for the confusion. I'm sure the critics are going to try and discredit us for that misunderstanding, but I wanted to set the record straight on today's show. Now, let's get into the rest of the show today. You guys, we have some crazy stuff to talk about. We got the moon mission launch, the Artemis launch that was delayed, and they're saying it was delayed due to a bleeding engine. Are you kidding me? So we're going to get into that today at the end of the show. And we're also going to get into something else that was being dropped from the skies while the Artemis rocket was trying to go up into the sky. We're going to talk about the rabies smack. We're going to call it Jacksine. We'll call it a Jacksine. Now being dropped on 13 states. 13 states are dropping the rabies smack the nation. Now, why are they doing this? Well, this is what we're going to talk about today, because something is going on. Why are they dropping these on American states? Now, many of you will remember the investigation that we looked into over the last couple years. There was a mysterious mad cow kind of like disease. They call it Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease that was spreading around New Brunswick, Canada. Now, if you don't know where New Brunswick is, it's just above the state of Maine in America, which is up in the tippy top northeast corner. And just above that is New Brunswick in Canada. And the first thing we found during this investigation was that certain older generation rabies vaccines were cultured in sheep brains, and that these vaccines were being airdropped onto New Brunswick to supposedly curb the rabies outbreak that they said was happening there. And when we discovered that these older generation rabies vaccines were cultured in sheep brains, we realized that that was also a vector for mad cow disease. In fact, there's documented cases of the older generation of these rabies vaccines being used and people actually suffering severe side effects. Now, they say they're rare, but all it takes is one person to get these prions inside their brain, and then, these things spread, right? They're basically, prions are indestructible. And so we began to wonder if some of these older generation vaccines somehow made their way into the Canadian pellet drop. Now, people say, oh, that's impossible. Well, guess what? These older generation pellets are still being used today in some countries. India and parts of Africa are still using the sheep cultured. So what are the odds? Like, all you would need to do is accidentally mix some in. What if they ran out and they're like, ooh, we can get half price on this shipment from this, and then somebody doesn't realize that this is potentially dangerous, and they mix them all in, and next thing you know, you have yourself a situation, right? Let's read some of this and bring you guys up to speed. So, official investigation to New Brunswick mysterious brain disorder finds no new condition. Of course, the Canadian authorities are denying that there was even a cluster or outbreak, and they've shut it all down. They said they did their investigation, and there's nothing to see here. Move along. But yet, 48 people had this neurological syndrome, and they were all in a relatively tight area. So people are like, what's going on? Well, it's all been kind of swept away. Creutzfeldt-Jakob, basically a mad cow type of disorder. People are suffering anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, brain atrophy. Their brains are actually shrinking. Blurred vision, memory problems, unexplained weight loss, terrifying hallucination that made them afraid to go to sleep. Muscle jerks, so severe that they couldn't be controlled with strong medication. And what is called a capgras delusion, a belief that family members have been replaced by imposters. What the heck is going on with Canada? Now, most of the people lived in Moncton, New Brunswick, on the New Brunswick Acadian Peninsula. There were 10 people that died. This is pretty serious. They mentioned the prion diseases, and they're saying that all of this was just natural causes and that there was a perfectly logical explanation for all of this. Now, here is a paper or an article all the way back from 2015 in which New Brunswick was already saying, oh, we have a rabies problem. And it says here, since 2014, the province of New Brunswick has been experiencing an incursion of raccoon variant rabies. Raccoon, of course, scrambled is corona. What that means, you have to decide. Now let's keep going here. We talked a lot about this, the rabies, the zombie apocalypse, what's all we've been talking about on this channel for the past several years. Fast forward to the following year, 2015, and this is when New Brunswick began dropping these baits out of the sky, out of airplanes, airdropping them onto the wildlife and the population. And if these were mixed in with the older generation, and it made its way into some of the wild game that people hunt for, and then made its way onto someone's table, and then into their brain. And that's how this works. Now, here's the drop. And much of this was dropped right over Moncton, the same place where these outbreaks happened. I'm not saying there's a connection. We're just simply presenting facts that could lead to maybe helping the authorities get down to the bottom of this. Now, here's an article, a very old article from 2006 that talks about the older generation rabies vaccine. Interestingly, this released on 3/22, March 22nd, Skull and Bones. And the name of this older vaccine generation is called NTV, which stands for neural tissue vaccine. And according to this article, as of 2006, it was still being used in India and parts of Africa. Now, I'll pin all of this for you guys in the pinned comment so you can see this. Indian Ministry of Health was unwilling to abandon their outdated sheep brain vaccine, and apparently the WHO realized that this was a problem and was basically trying to ban all this, the use of this, by 2006, but India refused. This is why I tell you guys, how was this thing even approved in the first place? It took them till 2006 to figure out that this was causing problems. So, they always talk about evolving science, don't they? Well, while it's evolving, do you really want to be part of it? Not me. Because then they come back later and go, oh, we didn't know. So, NTV. It's basically made inside of brain tissue. Now, who came up with that idea? I don't know. Now, this article talks about how unethical the culturing of this in the sheep brains is. They basically drill holes in the skull of the sheep, then they cut its head off. To me, this is spiritual. This is like symbolic for them. This is what they want to do to us. Okay, we're the sheep. And eventually we know that some of us are going to lose our heads, aren't we? Well, they take the brains and they put them in a blender. I mean, who does this? I mean, can you imagine the scientists doing this, going, la da 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 da, let's drill the hole in the skull. Now let's cut the head off. I mean, these are mad scientists. Put it in the blender. Okay. Look at this. Annually, 35,000 liters of anti-rabies vaccine are produced by this shocking method using 30,000 sheep. Unbelievable. So, I don't know. Where did some of this stuff make its way into these drops? Who knows? I don't know. Be really easy to have that happen, though. Now, outside of this investigation, we've been looking into this whole rabies thing since the pandemic started, haven't we? We've been looking at zombie viruses because rabies and zombies are very closely related, aren't they? Here is a paper right here showing that this older technology, rabies vaccine, was still being used in places like Africa. This one in Ethiopia as of 2006. Now here's a playlist that we did on rabies. And this shows that we've been tracking it for several years now. Some of these are from this year, but some go back a little bit further. So check out this playlist if you're interested in rabies. Some of these actually talk about Canada, I believe, about the whole Canadian situation. Now, to me, what has happened here is there's been a slow progression of gradualism to try and vaccinate wildlife against rabies. They actually did a study on deers on this video that we did, tagging them and collaring them to test them for rabies. So this has been a thing over the last year. And now these 13 states are dropping the same pellets that Canada dropped onto. Now, why the number 13, right? It just seems very suspect and suspicious. And why now? Now here's the article on this. It says the U.S. Department of Agriculture has been. Let me see if this video plays
Weekend's
anything.
looking a little bit better, very hot.
Just like
We'll give everything away. Mary Hours has been tracking this.
Yeah.
Afternoon forecast. I thought this video might talk about.
Are people going to have to carry some
Why can't I
reindeer
fast
for them
forward?
if they attend that
Hold on, guys. Let's go to the top here. Maybe I could do it here.
concert with Gabby?
It's mostly just but mostly sunny and
Oh,
hot,
it's
increasing moisture
just
in
the
the
weather.
atmosphere. North region.
Old
About
weather
5 to
too.
6
Okay, let's read this article here. Okay, close this now. Pittsburgh, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has begun scattering millions of packets of oral rabies jack seen from helicopters and planes over 13 states from Maine to Alabama. Major aim is to keep raccoons, raccoon corona, right, from spreading their strain of the deadly virus to states where it hasn't been found or isn't widespread, said Field Trial Coordinator Jordana Kirby. The USDA is also continuing tests of Jack-Seed approved in Canada to immunize skunks as well as raccoons, which is part of the Agriculture Department's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. Rabies is spread through an infected animal saliva, through bites. However, saliva that gets into the eyes, nose, or mouth can also infect someone. Oh, wow. So if you start petting on a, or something licks you or something, you can get this kind of thing. 13 people in South Carolina were considered potentially exposed in March. Oh, 13 states, 13 people. After they had bottle fed or given medicine to a sick calf that turned out to have rabies. Wow. Globally, the virus kills 60,000 people a year, most bitten by dogs. Same number that get shots to prevent rabies in the U.S. after being bitten or scratched by an infected or possibly infected animal. So they're basically saying this is a national emergency that needs to be taken care of. Now, this is creepy because right here, you see this fox who has rabies. This is just broke. Someone sent this to me. Who bit this lady on camera. Let's watch this.
Sneaking up on a woman in her front yard.
Bam.
From this angle, you can see
What the heck? I wonder if it actually drew blood. Let's keep watching here.
attack. She kicks the fox over and over, but the animal keeps coming back.
Oh,
It's biting
jeez.
her.
Oh my goodness. So here's this zombie element to this, right? Remember, zombies, their main goal is to eat other people. But also, the main goal is to spread the virus, right? Because this is what happens. Once they bite you, it spreads. It's almost like the virus has a mind of its own, and it's neurologically controlling the host so that it can spread itself to other people. I mean, this is the age-old zombie story out of zombie lore. And this fox is actually acting like that. It's like it can't stop biting her. This is unbelievable.
Legs and scratching her arms
Oh
as she
my-
tries to break.
Did you see that? It jumped up on her arms even. Look at this poor lady. Look at the fox. What does the fox say? Oh my goodness. You guys, this is crazy. Let's keep watching here.
Arms as she tries to break free.
The more I tried to get him to leave me alone, the more voraciously he
Oh my goodness, this poor lady. I would have ran up to this post and smacked the thing up against a post like I was trying to get the dust out of a mat. Let me check in with you guys. I feel like I'm talking to myself. You ever get that feeling you're just talking to yourself? Talking to myself. Okay, so let's go back in here. This is crazy, you guys. Phew. Unbelievable.
came after me. He just wouldn't stop. And my fear was that he was going to trip me up and
And like go for the juggler or something, right?
I would fall and he would attack my face.
The fox won't give up.
He
Oh my-
latched into the fatty part of your hand right between your thumb and your
Whoa, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
forefinger with all of his might, and he held on, and I tried to rip him off. I tried to swing him off.
But then her neighbor shows
Oh.
up with a stick, and at last the fox retreats.
I will be grateful to him for
Wow. Let's see how, if they treated her. I mean, let's see what happened here. This guy's a hero. Oh, man.
the rest of my life, and I just thank God that he heard me.
Did it ever cross your mind that the fox might have rabies?
It did, Megan, after the third or fourth approach from the fox because he was so persistent.
Sure enough, the fox was later caught and it tested positive for rabies.
Whoa. Now, what makes it, I mean, I guess if the fox had babies nearby, you could see that it would act like this. What has she got in her hand? A remote control? What is that? Man, I would have ran up and smacked that thing up against a post. Let's keep watching.
Sherry Russo was treated right away, and so far, she says she's showing no signs that she contracted rabies.
Rabies is a viral disease that is almost always fatal.
James Jameson. So the thing is like with rabies is you have to get treated right away. They say there's like a window, and if you wait, then you will actually get it for sure and die. Like if you wait too long.
If not treated immediately. If you get bitten or even scratched by a rabid animal, you need to go immediately to the doctor.
Sherry
Notice how rabid sounds like rabbit, doesn't it?
is going to be fine, but what a traumatic
She's doing the fox dance.
experience.
It felt like it was going to last forever.
Oh man, that is crazy. Oh my goodness. Now, you know, these people are constantly talking about overpopulation of the planet, aren't they? And so people think, oh, well, you know, how could this happen? You know, this will never happen, you guys. You know, why are you guys worried about this? They're not just out there trying to take people out. Well, of course they could be doing that. They're constantly obsessing over depopulation, overpopulation of the earth. What would stop them from doing something like this? Right? Now, here's what's going on in social media that's trending right now because people are starting to act like this fox. Look at this guy. I'm going to play this, but here's what I've been seeing in my trending videos. People armed with knives, chains, people reaching for pop sticks out of their car, even while they got 10 cops standing around them. Basically, they're ending their own life by policemen. People are shaking off tasers like nothing. You guys, tasers don't even work anymore. And I've been saying this for a few weeks now, that cops should upgrade to a 22 round in one of their holsters or on their hip or on their ankle, wherever they want to put it. People are like, oh, 22 is not going to stop someone. Yeah, well, if you shoot someone in the leg and break their leg with the 22, they're going to stop coming at you because these people aren't in their right mind. There's something wrong. Look at this guy. He runs out in his underwear. He starts attacking the police officer. They're trying. I guess this guy ran into a bar in his underwear. So they called the cops. Okay. So obviously this guy needs to be taken care of, right? Something's wrong with him. Running around with no shirt on and went into a bar. I think he was harassing some of the patrons. And so they want to get this guy under control. Maybe he needs to get some treatment, mental treatment. But instead of him complying, look at, what is that? Looks like a rabbit in the background. Rabbit head. I don't know why I noticed stuff like that, you guys. But anyway, so this guy, he's grabbing for the officer's gun. Look at this. He's trying to get the gun out of the holster. He's basically wants to die, basically, right? They're like, calm down, dude. And you can hear him actually telling the guy to calm down. But instead of calming, look at, he's trying to grab the guy's gun out of, I mean, I don't understand this. The only thing that makes sense to me about this is that something is happening to people. They're losing their minds. You don't want to be around one of these rabid people when this happens. Now, people have their suspicions about why these people are losing it. And I have my suspicions as well, but I can't tell you why I think this is. You have to make your own judgment about that. You have to make your own judgment about that. Now, we're going to go back into the chat just for a minute. Decompress off of that drama. That was crazy. And then we're going to talk about the Artemis launch. Welcome everybody to the channel. Glad everybody could make it. Yeah, she was doing the fox dance, wasn't she? That was crazy. Like if you took the fox out of the picture, like you blurred, you know, like you digitally removed it, it would look like she was doing some kind of crazy dance. I mean, I know this isn't funny, but it kind of was funny. Phew, man, I don't even know what I would do in that situation. I would just be like, what is going on with this fox? Yeah, Katie says possession, and that is true. Because we know there's a precedent for animal possession in the Bible. Fox probably got possessed. The 666 fox. Now, I like foxes. I think they're cute. I know there's some YouTube channels that have pet foxes that are just adorable. I'm not saying foxes are bad or evil. I'm saying we just witnessed some kind of spiritual attack, didn't we? She was doing the foxtrot, says Mary. That's a good one. I love your guys's your jokes. They're hilarious. Now, let's start to close out the show with the Artemis launch attempt yesterday. And who comes up with this stuff? The test flight to the moon, Artemis, they're saying is now being delayed to September 2nd or the 5th. That's a new launch window, because they couldn't get the engine to stop bleeding. Now, really? You couldn't get the engine to stop bleeding? Wow. So, this is what Artemis looks like. This is the rocket here. Looks like, to me, a needle and 2 boosters is what it looks like to me. And what's happening right now? There's a bunch of people across the U.S. that are having heart attacks, bleeding issues, all kinds of weird stuff going on, right? Now, I don't know why that's happening. But I do know this rocket is 322 feet tall. 322, skull and bones. Welcome to the Matrix reality. So, let's read some of these articles here and get caught up on this. On Saturday, NASA detected 5 lightning strikes. Oh, everybody's getting struck by lightning. None of the strikes affected the SLS rocket itself. Instead, all 5 hit the launch pad's lightning protection system. A system of towers and catenary wires that can divert and safely ground out lightning strikes. NASA Artemis 1 Senior Test Director Jeff Spaulding said none of the strikes represented a threat to the launch in a Sunday briefing. Once in lunar orbit, the Orion capsule will remain in lunar orbit for 42 days. That's twice as long as it would orbit with humans on board. It is a stress test. Wow. Clocking in at 8.8 million pounds of thrust. Of course it's 8.8 million pounds in 42 days. So, here's the booster rocket. Rocket. And let's see where it says about it was bleeding. See this here. Rocket was scheduled to lift off at 8:33. Of course, 8:33. However, mission controllers scrubbed the Artemis launch at T-minus 40 minutes. Of course, it was T-minus 40 minutes. 40 days in the wilderness. Safety checks before the launch halted the countdown. Launch director called a scrub because of the engine bleed that couldn't be stopped. Couldn't stop the engine bleed. Wow. Okay. So you guys get the point, right? I hope you guys do, because that's crazy. There's an article here. Taller than the Statue of Liberty. Of course, it has to be taller than a copper statue, right? Because it's all about the copper and the blue bloods. So, now, some people have already covered this. I'm just going off of your guys' comments that you leave, and I try to cover some of this stuff so that everybody can hear what is being talked about here. So we all get caught up to speed. Some other channels might have broken this 322 feet high already. I don't know. I don't really follow a lot of other truth channels. On my downtime, I try to just follow channels so that I can have fun. I follow a channel of this Russian family who just walks around. I follow some fishing channels because, you know, I'm human and I need some downtime too. But I don't follow other truth channels on my downtime typically. Now, they are really pushing this space thing pretty hard, aren't they? Guess who showed up to the VMA Awards? Well, Johnny Depp. And guess what he was doing? Flying around in a spacesuit. Well, he wasn't actually. They basically digitally imposed his face onto this at the VMA Awards. Are you kidding me? Now, never ever forget who was front and center at the Artemis program, who originated it, who created it. It was our best friend, Trump. Never ever forget that. Look at this. Look at Johnny Depp. People are mad too. They're like, wait a minute. He just got away with da-da-da. Here's Amber Heard's sister, Whitney, calls MTV disgusting and desperate for including Johnny Depp at the VMAs. Wow. Unbelievable. So, she's angry. He's making money still. And the world keeps going round and round, right? Now, a couple more stories here. There's California. What California's ban on gas cars could mean for you, even if you don't live here. And this is what's going on, you guys. What goes for California goes for the rest of the United States. They call it the California rule. And we've been talking about this, haven't we? By 2035, they're going to basically force all vehicles that are made, new vehicles in California have to be non-gas powered. They have to be electric vehicles, 100% electric. Wow. Now, how do they know the other states are going to follow suit? Well, because they know this is about the electric kingdom, which we've been talking about, where they'll have full electronic control over the grid and who gets to use fossil fuels and who doesn't. Make no mistake, fossil fuels are still going to be used, but there'll be rules on who can and who can't. And for a long time, the only ones who are going to get to use fossil fuels will be the ones making the electricity. And of course, the rich, who have already set up a system where they can buy carbon credits and they can use all the gas that they want. So they can fly on their jets still, because you can't make an electric jet probably 30 years out from that technology. The batteries alone would be too heavy for the jet to get off the ground. So, here's California. They don't even have a plan to figure out where all this electricity is going to come from for all this electric kingdom that they're building. Let's read a little bit about this. Then I'll be back in the chat with you guys. California, it's on its way to banning the sale of new gas-powered cars in the state. Advanced Clean Cars 2 regulation. Let's see, ACC. Oh, of course it has to be ACC. ACDC, right? It's about electricity. So the Advanced Clean Cars 2 regulations approved August 25th by the California Air Resources Board, the CARB. Oh, it has to be. Are you serious? California Air Resources Board, the CARB. Like carbon credits. Wow, these people have some. The sorcery goes deep, doesn't it? It says we'll require all new cars, trucks, and SUVs sold in California to be zero emissions by 2035. Now it says sold, so that means if you already have one, you're going to probably be okay. But here's the problem. Your costs as a gas driver are going to go through the roof as they try to incentivize you to switch over to electric. That's how this is going to work. There probably won't even be parts for your car to fix it when it breaks. So even though you think you're going to hold on to your gas dream, they're going to do everything they can to squash that dream. Okay? Now understand that gas represents independence. Represents the ability to go from state to state over large stretches of American roads and highways. As soon as you go on to electric, there will be a transition period where there won't be that infrastructure. And you'll be limited, largely limited, to very small areas, local areas, especially for the people who can't afford the nicer electric cars. We're going to get the cheap car that only has an 80-mile radius. That's how this is going to go down. In other words, your ability to move about freely will be impeded. And they even admit this. Until the technology, quote unquote, catches up. We will be at the mercy of their technology catching up. Never in the history of transportation have we reached such a bottleneck. Because think about it. For the last, what? I want to say 80 years, car technology has largely remained the same. We've had the same level of autonomy, same level of range. There have been gas stations forever, like Route 66, of course. People driving across the country. It used to be a big thing in the 70s and 80s. Families would get in the car and drive across the entire country. That's not going to happen so much anymore. And if it does, it's going to cost you 2 to 3 times as much. And you're going to be very limited as to where you can go. You're definitely not going to be able to go into unincorporated areas without infrastructure. You're going to be limited to the main highways, which is how they want it, because they can control the main highways and the grid. And that's how they want it. See, no one's thinking about all this stuff. Now, California has already banned any kind of small engines. So if you had like a scooter, like a gas scooter or gas, I don't know if the generators are included in this. Maybe you guys can let us know in the chat if they've also banned gas generators. But they have banned lawn equipment that is run by gas already in California, devastating the lawn care industry, whole industries based on that have all gas equipment. Got $20,000 worth of gas equipment. And now all of that has become obsolete, and they have to slowly replace it and carry around 1,000 pounds of batteries on their truck, which of course is going to cause more gas emissions. These people don't know what they're doing. Under the new regulations, California set benchmarks for new vehicle sales, starting with model year 2026. This is just around the corner, when 35% of new car sales in the state have to be battery electric, hydrogen fuel cell electric, or plug-in hybrid vehicles. Right now, more than 16% of new vehicles sold in California are zero emissions or hybrid models. With that kind of head start in the state, Jessica Caldwell, Executive Director of Insights at AutoSite Edmunds, believes automakers could meet the first benchmark. Now, here's the thing. I don't have any problem with an electric car. I just don't want to be forced into it. And if they truly wanted to incentivize people to buy an electric car, they should make it should be in the free market, shouldn't it? I thought we lived in America. In other words, if it makes sense to buy an electric car financially and in all kinds of other ways, then people would do it. But to force people to do it is just wrong. That's not the free market. So they're now saying California is the trendsetter. The rest of the states will follow, and we know that they are not bluffing because they've had a track record and precedent for passing things in California that later become nationwide. We saw this with same-sex marriage, didn't we? Even though most people didn't vote for it in California, it was passed, and then the rest of the country followed suit. Anyway, I'm back in the chat here. See what you guys are up to. I always like to check in with you guys and see what's going on. See if I missed anything. All right. So what is the new electric kingdom going to look like? Well, there's going to be basically centers where a lot of fossil fuels are being burned to basically electrify the grid. So it's going to be like an iPad Goat 2 in the opening of that animated film, where you got the goat in a box behind a barbed wire fence, and in the background you see all these smokestacks billowing with fossil fuels to create the electricity that's used to keep the goat in the box in the cage with the floodlights. The electrified cage. That's going to be all of us in the electric kingdom, right? And they're going to be able to be the ones to tell us what we can and can't do. They can turn the grid off and on when they want. They can turn off certain areas. Let's say people are organizing to protest the government. They'll just simply turn off the grid there. Oh, you don't get to do that. We're just going to turn off all your cars, turn off your electricity. You're not even going to get out the front door. This is where it's all headed. And no one will ever make the connection. They'll just be like, oh, there was a grid outage in Kentucky or something. But, you know, oh, too bad. They couldn't do their protest. Couldn't upload it to YouTube because there was no internet because the power went out. So this is the danger of consolidation of the right to use electricity. As soon as you give away that right, it's almost like pop stick rights, Second Amendment. As soon as you give that up, now the beast has much, much more power over you and can now control your life. So this is where everything's headed. So let's go into the chat here. The electric grid will crash like it's now doing in Europe. I completely agree. And they'll say, oh, in order to make the grid better, we have to raise taxes. We have to raise taxes. And the people will agree with it. They'll be like, yeah, that way the lights don't go out. It's unbelievable. All right. Not my home either. Absolutely. That's why they're pushing solar. Exactly. Now, solar sounds good. I went down the solar rabbit hole. Sounded amazing. Problem is, you got a 20-year lease on your solar equipment. And pretty much most of that equipment has to be replaced after 20 years. Solar panels don't last forever, especially the new cheaper ones. They have to be replaced, they have to be maintained, they have to be cleaned. Okay? Who even stays in a house for 20 years? Most people don't anymore. I can't remember the statistic, but most people sell their house within 20 years. It's probably like 50, 60%. People don't stay in their houses anymore. Why? Because their work isn't consistent. In order to pay your mortgage, you have to have a job, a consistent job, and it's almost impossible to find another job of equal or greater value in the same area where you live. Most people have to move, and I know because this happened to me. So, you are on a 20-year lease for solar. Next thing you know, 20 years are up, you've been paying $200 a month on your solar, which is about breaks even, possibly with what you would have paid in electricity. And now you've got to go and replace all that equipment. So here comes the solar guy. Hey, let's roll you over into another lease. Okay, here you start all over again. $150, $200 a month. That doesn't make sense to me. Now, if you have enough money to buy batteries and be off the grid, which is becoming more and more rare because it's becoming illegal in a lot of places, if you're living within the grid, they make you tie into the grid with your solar. And so now all of a sudden, that's not even really your power. When the lights go out, you don't get to turn your solar panels on. You're in the grid. Your lights go out with everybody else's lights. Now, how does that make sense? You're basically taking on all the risk so that the utilities can get all the benefits of your solar panels. The minute you don't pay a lease payment, you lose your solar panels or whatever, however that works. I don't know. Now, if you're off the grid and you get a bunch of batteries to store your own power, that's super, super expensive. We're talking $15,000, $20,000 for a simple solar system, solar panels, and enough batteries to basically give you power for a few days. Now, even when these rebates came online, the solar company simply just raised the price by the $7,000 for the rebate. So you really didn't save anything. This is why rebates don't work. Because as soon as there's money on the table, somebody scoops it up, and it ain't you. So, I've been down the whole solar route. I don't know. What's better, wind or gas generator for as long as they allow gasoline? I don't know. I don't know the answers to everything, you guys. I don't know the answer to a lot of things. But something is not right with all this. Maybe the cost of solar is too high. Maybe it's artificially inflated on purpose to fit perfectly in their plan to basically create an electric kingdom, have everyone buy these solar panels, and then so they can continue to maintain control over the solar panels, and the people, we get the shaft. I think that's what's really happening. So, what else do we have in here? Water and wind power. There you go, Rachel. Good plan there. Water and wind. Now, some places don't have a lot of wind. It's not too windy here in Arkansas. I don't really ever see windy days here. Probably wouldn't be that good here. Water could work. It's kind of water. I don't know if there's technology for that out there. Like if you had some kind of stream. I have seen these. I did some research into these. They're basically like what's the word for it? Water wheels. Water wheels, and you can stick these down in relatively shallow streams. They'll turn, and they basically pump water. I've seen that. I've never seen them really create power though. I'm sure you could retrofit it with a little bit of knowledge, but maybe that's what we need to start looking into. Maybe there needs to be more YouTube channels talking about, water and turning water into power. Okay. But as we know, they're starting to desertify. I don't know if that's a word, but turn a lot of places in the U.S. into desert. So there's another problem. So, all right. Appreciate all of you guys. I don't know what we're doing tomorrow yet. Might do some more headlines. The Sandman series. We did the decode on that yesterday. And I told you guys I probably wasn't going to be watching additional episodes, and I'm kind of glad I'm not, because people were saying it got really, really dark. And in the last episode, he actually meets the devil. And there's all kinds of alternative lifestyle themes running through it, which I just can't deal with. So if you guys have any ideas of anything you'd like me to decode, go ahead and put that in the comments section, and I'll try to take a look at it. I love each and every one of you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for showing up today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Much love.